Welcome to this special and exclusive interview. My name is Avenash Ramzan, and today we will be talking to former Guyana and West Indies captain Ramnaresh Sarwan, who has now officially retired from international and first-class cricket. It promises to be a very candid and thought-provoking interview as we go in depth into a cricketing career that started on the Essequibo island of Wakenham and ended in a somewhat abrupt fashion. You'll hear of his boyhood days when the spark for a career in cricket ignited, the route baptism as a 15-year-old in senior regional cricket, handling fame and popularities that came with success, manning up to Glenn McGrath in 2003 in Antigua, and of course, the controversies that arose from being an outspoken person.
Beautifully struck down the ground, the half volley played with all the grace and flourish that you can imagine. He is a lovely touch player, Ramnaresh Sarwan, and he's put that away to the delight of his home crowd.
Well, this is cleanly struck and not a muscle move.
All right, Ramnaresh, thank you very much for taking time out from your busy schedule to talk to us today. You're now officially retired, but it would seem that over the last couple of years, you have lost favor with the local and West Indies selectors. Was that a decisive factor in you making that announcement that you have officially retired?
Yeah, it was, and I also wanted to have the opportunity to play at home again, which the CPL quite presented to me.
All right. Let's go back to a bit about when you started. There is a story that an incident took place under a tree at Stella Maris Primary School where you went to. Tell us a bit about that and how significant was that moment into shaping the person that you are today?
I was in class and I think we had break around 10 o'clock that morning. So I saw a few guys playing cricket under the tree. When I approached them, there was a gentleman by the name of Mr. Headley and they had Miss Caroline there. So I asked them if it's possible for me to get an opportunity to bat. Both of them looked at me and there was like, the bat is almost as big as you. How would you be able to bat these guys? And you're such a small guy. They kept going on and I kept begging them, literally until they allowed me the opportunity to go bat. I can recall that I had one side pad and one side glove. As I went on to bat, they probably bowled to me about 7 to 12 minutes and they couldn't get me out. And then when I finished batting, I went back to Mr. Headley and Miss Caroline. And Mr. Headley basically called Mr. William Jeffrey, who was in charge basically of the under-12 tournament, and said, Jeffrey, I think I'll find one here, boy. That was basically where it all started. And of course, you're well aware of the under-12 tournament and stuff like that. And that's the foundation of what kind of set everything for me for the rest of my career.
I remember that you actually made 2 centuries at the under-12 competition, right?
Yes, I did, yeah.
From there now you moved on to playing competitively with a club. You went on to the Georgetown Cricket Club, which was at the time one of the top clubs, not just in Guyana, but one of the top clubs in the Caribbean. There you linked up with a certain guy by the name of Carl Hooper. He did mention something to you from the moment he saw you. And what was that?
A lot of people don't know this, and I forgot to mention it a few days ago. I actually went to YMCA first before I went to GCC. But and I met Mr. Neil Primus there because Mr. Jeffrey took me across to YMCA because we were in a mini camp with where they had an under-12 all-star team, I think it was. And we used to be at the gymnasium. So Mr. Jeffrey took me across to YMCA because he was a very good friend with Mr. Primus. Gradually, my focus started to shift to table tennis, where I met Monroe and those guys. Yeah, so he was kind of concerned that I was starting to play more table tennis than cricket. So what I did, I have an uncle, Ali, who supported me throughout my career. So he came one day and he saw me playing table tennis and he asked me if that's the real purpose I'm here. I said no, but he said, come, let's go. Spoke to Mr. Jeffrey and decided to take me to the best club in the country. So I went across to GCC. I think it was a Saturday, Soon as I got across the GCC, there was a first division game going on. It so happened to be that Sheikh Mohammed was the captain, and he was the first person that donated a Great Nichols bat to me. So I was sitting in the stand. I think the game was scheduled to start at 12. For some reason, someone never showed up, and it was the finals. So they dragged me into the team to play the game before I even joined the club.
And what age was this?
This was in 1992.
Oh, so you're just about 12.
Yeah, I was now 12, yeah, because I was now coming out of the phase of playing on the 12 cricket. So they dragged me into to playing the game. I think I had scored 24, retired hurt or something like that. And from there on, I went on to practice, and of course, I joined the club. When I just turned 14, I was fortunate and lucky to meet Carl Hooper, who, when he first met me, started both some medium pace in the nets and stuff like that. And then after I finished batting, he said to me that he sent me some gears, and then he basically said that one day I'll be playing for West Indies, just make sure that I work hard towards my game.
You mentioned persons giving you gears and stuff to play the game again. How difficult was it acquiring cricket gear? Because we know it's an expensive sport.
Yeah, it was difficult, but like I said before, I was very lucky and fortunate. Obviously, my parents made the necessary sacrifice to allow me to follow the sport that I love. But I was so lucky. When I played the under 12 tournament, I basically won everything. So there was stuff like for bats, boots, gloves, and stuff like that. So basically, I already had the gears to use. But because people was already seeing the talent in me, they kind of invested and kind of started to donate stuff, which I'm grateful for. And then, of course, like I said, Miss Carl sent me some gears and stuff that I started to use.
A year after Hooper made that statement to you, you found yourself on the Guyana senior team. You became the youngest cricketer to ever play a regional first-class game. Were you prepared for that?
But since growing up, I've been playing with older people. Like, for example, when I was 14, I was already in under 19 trials. I was playing against Ryan King, German Ablett, Colin Stewart, and those guys. But to be prepared for a regional tournament, which I had no idea was going to be like, no, I was still young and raw. I never understood the responsibility. I never understood the challenges that would lie ahead, the different opposition and stuff like that. But I think what really helped me throughout that phase, it was a period when we were playing 10 games per season. Right. So that kind of helped me. So it gave me a little more time to basically get myself ready and used to the tournament. It was a high level of competition those days, the first class level, and you were facing up to guys, as you mentioned in a previous interview, to guys like Cameron Coffey and all these guys. Was it a case that they were bullying you, being that little 15-year-old boy from a country area playing regional cricket? Were you being bullied? Well, they tried.
Yeah.
But what happened when we were when I played my first game for Ghana at Albion, it was against Barbados. I didn't get an opportunity to bat because it rained, but I did get filler while I was cotton ball.
Right.
The following year when we went to Barbados, young, innocent, had no fear in the world. I was wearing a side piece and a helmet. Phil Walsh came up and he was literally in my face, intimidating me. And it so happened that I think it was Otis Gibson that got me out. That's funny. Otis Gibson that got me out, I think it was. So I made duck, but the whole kind of stuff that they were, the intimidation stuff, it was very bold. I mean, I never really listened to them because I was young and innocent, but most importantly, they never drove fear into me. But as time progressed during that same tournament, I kind of find my way gradually because I had Keith Semple, who I was rooming with, because I played 5 or 6 games and I didn't really get no major score. So he came to me because every time I batted in the nets, there was no issue. Yeah. But I always approach my game differently in the nets to actually when I'm in the game. So I was very positive and confident in the nets. I would strike the ball cleanly and stuff like that. And himself and Darlington branded me as the hunter. Yeah. Because I was so aggressive and trying to get forward and stuff like that. So he said, "Sars, why not try batting the same way in the matches the way you bat in the nets?" when I was recalled, I think for the seventh game, the last 3 games I scored, I think about 550s or 450s. And that was due to the fact that I made that adjustment. I went out to play and I played with no fear. And that's been my attitude since.
After those scores you had at the regional level, you got yourself into the West Indies A team at the age of 17. And then positive scores from there took you into the West Indies team. You made a brilliant 84 not out against a high-quality Pakistan bowling attack with the likes of Wasim Akram, Waqar Yunus, Saqil Mushtaq Ahmed, I think Abdul Razak was there as well. That innings must have given you a lot of confidence to start your career.
Yeah, it did. Obviously, to play against those guys who I looked up to and looked at them on television, it was exciting. But during that whole phase of my life, between 15 to 19, I think I was prepared for it because it is not only on the field, but the onslaught that was going to come verbally as well, because I experienced it at a very young age. And I was very hot-tempered. So if people say things to me, I would say it back. I was never shy off from it or be scared because I tend to gain energy from it and good vibes. I became very, very, very aggressive, and I liked it. So sometimes I strive in it, sometimes I deliberately do it so people could react. But I gained a lot of confidence from that particular innings. But prior to that, I played against Zimbabwe, where I scored back-to-back hundreds in Trinidad, Park. So I was already booming in confidence. But for me, I think throughout my entire career, between 15 to 19, and up until I played for West Indies, I was lucky to go through different phases of my career where I was basically groomed. And one of the persons that had a major impact on me for that was Roger Harper. And I think for those people who have been with me since I was 10, and going from hand to hand or coaches to coaches, those people have prepared me for that occasion.
Obviously, you had cricket in your blood, having played from the under 12 level. But how important is it having a coach, especially the amount of time that Roger Harper spent with you and giving you a ground? How important is that?
It's very important. I think a lot of people kind of don't think it's important, especially when you play at the highest level. For me, it was very important because there are certain things that he knew that I had to do for me to peak or to be well prepared for a game. As a player, you know what is stuff that you want to do, but I think when you have someone else who is very close to you and who looks for things that you can improve or faults that you can improve on, and of course your strengths where you can also make stronger, I think it's very helpful. And I think that is why I've been so successful in terms of moving from stage to stage in my career.
A lot of people forget the fact that you used to bowl a lot at the youth level. Was that something you used to work on, or was that part of your strength, or you were just trying to feel, should I take bowling or should I take batting? Which one came naturally to you?
I think I wanted to do both, frankly speaking, but I think when I made my debut for Guyana, we had Magaril, Nagamutu, so it was very difficult. Obviously, I couldn't really bowl as good as those guys, so they were the first choice. I would probably be used as a part-time bowler or someone who would try and get a breakthrough or something like that. So basically, I kind of lost interest. But I went to leg spinners camp and stuff like that. So until win back-to-back MVP at a 19 level, it was never easy at that time. And I did that on back-to-back. And I was able to probably get over 20 wickets in both occasions. But I mean, it's something that probably when I got to the senior team, I kind of started get away from it due to the fact that I had other guys there that was bowling with the ball spinning away. So it was basically difficult for me to get an opportunity to bowl. I would practice it in the nets and stuff like that, but the enthusiasm of doing it, I kind of shift most of my focus on batting.
After that debut against Pakistan, the world took notice of Ramnaresh Sarwan. Obviously, with the successes that you had initially, popularity, fame, and of course, money came into the picture. How much of a change that had in your life? Because all of a sudden you were the talk of the town. You were in the papers all the time. People want to get a photo, they want autograph. How did you deal with that situation?
Cricket has given me everything, and I'll always be grateful. Obviously, the building that we sit in today is because of cricket. But in terms of the fame, and those stuff. And I would refer to where I came from again. I came from a small island called Wakenham. And then, of course, my parents were very humble. I know my dad is very hardworking. He used to be in the interior very often. And then I've got my mom basically taking care of myself and my sister because it was like 11 to 12 months apart. So I was fully aware, and my mom and my dad shared those occasions with me. So for me, I could never forget that. I was born at home in the house, which is very strange. My mom never made it to the hospital. And on top of that, then when I went to school, I had Miss Carla and Mr. Headley. Then I had my uncle. I had Mr. William Jeffrey. And then I went to GCC, Mr. Watkins, Harold Danraj, and Richard Joda. Those people keep me grounded because when you go to GCC, Mr. Danraj would say, hats on and turn in front, short in your pants, white long pants, white socks, white boots. So that was taught to me at a very young age. Even people who I was not related to, they were relative of mine, I would say auntie or uncle. Morning, good afternoon, good day. Those are stuff that I learned at a very young age. I would never go away. So when all this stuff came to me, I went back to those days. For example, I would refer to Walsh as Mr. Walsh or Mr. Ambrose. When I first did an interview and I said Mr. Ambrose, everybody was like kind of, surprised. But that is where it all came from. I was never an individual who tried to, go out there and think. I think people have got their perception because I would go out and party and stuff like that. And people got their opinion. That is fine with me. But in my opinion about myself, I think I've been able to manage myself pretty well throughout my career.
You love to eat with your hands.
Yeah, of course.
All of a sudden now you're sitting at a table with presidents and CEOs and stuff like that using knife.
Not from far.
How uncomfortable was that? Or was it comfortable for you?
It was uncomfortable, but going back to the Maltinos Academy with Mr. Raphael and Ms. Terry, they taught us how to use those knife and forks and how to have soup and stuff like that. Don't turn the bowl up and you know what I mean. But those things were taught to me at a very young age. But little did I know it was preparing me for the future, which I couldn't see. So those things I'm grateful for, and those people have guided me on a part. Likewise, they have tried to do the same thing to the other people who were there. But of course, not all of us could go on and play. But those are the little things that in my life that prepared me for the future.
The Tour of Australia was probably your first major failure in a series. 3 runs, I think, in 5 innings. How disappointing was that for you?
It was very disappointing. I wanted to do very well in Australia, and of course against Australia, because due to the fact they've been touted as the best team during that period of time. So I was excited for that tour. But I think we knew, and everyone knew that was going to be a testing time for me. And I'm glad it actually happened at such a young age, because I usually call it the baptism of my career. So to experience that was a step back for me, but it also taught me that I needed to be more mentally tough, because the verbal abuse that came there, and obviously the condition in itself was a different challenge by itself. I embraced it after that. I was dropped. I came back home. Luckily, we had about 6 games to play. I think I scored 600 and odd runs in that tournament. Then soon after I was recalled. But the tour to Australia is what kind of allowed me to toughen up mentally.
You were never touted initially as a one-day batsman, but you ended up being one of the best finishers of the modern era. I remember you played a pivotal role in the West Indies winning the Champions Trophy and taking the team to the NatWest Series final. What helped you to make that? It was an almost seamless transition from Test cricket to one day. How did it happen?
We were in England, and like you rightfully pointed out, it took a while before I played my first one day. So Brian had a major thing in that, in terms of me getting an opportunity to play. So the morning before the game, he pulled up sick. So I was given the opportunity. I think I scored 20 or 21, and I got bowled on with ball. I don't know. Maybe it was, but he has always said to me that they should have picked me early to play one-day cricket. So I don't know if it was deliberate or not, but I was given an opportunity by him basically, because he pulled out at the last moment. So from there on, I started to gain confidence. Gradually, I started to recognize my game and understand it a little more. What I changed though is the way that I started to run between the wickets, because I couldn't really hit sixes and stuff like that. So a lot of my game was rely on placement, and that's right, and rotating the strike. And I felt once I can get to the stage where I can rotate the strike and at least score at a strike rate of 70, 75, I would give myself a good chance.
This was high in those days.
That's right. I would give myself a good chance of sustaining a good run rate, and especially when you're chasing. But so gradually, as I recognized that and I started to build around that, I became more confident. Then I recognized that there's need for me that certain points of the game I would need to pick up boundaries. But I was very reluctant to challenge the fielders in the deep position, especially long on and long off. But what changed that I was touring India, and I was very low in confidence. And a young lady, a fan, wrote me a letter, and I would never forget this. And her quote to me: "The greatest fear of failure is being afraid to fail." And that is something that I took with me for the rest of my life, especially my playing career, and I will keep that. So the next game, and this we were actually playing against India. I started to challenge the long on and the long off field, so I started to hit sixes and stuff like that. So I went through the phases of trying to rotate the strike, running very hard between the wickets, placing, picking up the odd boundaries, and then when I felt confident enough, I started to challenge the fielders on the boundaries. So that is how gradually it kind of phased out. But it was never a situation when we were playing one-day cricket that I felt I was out, especially if I was in the crease. I never felt that stuff was impossible. I always believe that once I'm in the crease, whether the run rate is 8 or 10 or 12, whatever it is, I think it was possible.
And you did mention that Lara played a significant role as well. He was the guy who taught you how to win.
That's right.
Tell us a bit about the conversations you would normally have.
No, I mean, basically, and we know how well he wins game. I had a tendency of panicking early in my career, especially if you're in a situation where you find yourself that you got 3 overs to probably get 30 runs. But if you look at 18 balls to get 30 runs, it's much easier. So he kind of break it down and taught me how to basically go after certain balls at certain times and
target specific.
That's right. And I was able to work it out after time, because gradually it kind of fall into place, and start to look at him and look at others, and basically that's what I did, and that's what he taught me.
In the 2003 series against Australia, you made a magnificent 100, batting along with Shivnarine Chanderpaul, and the West Indies chased on that 418, which remains the highest 14 innings run chase. It was a really emotionally charged test match. What was the game plan at the start of the 14 innings? You're chasing 418. Were you going to battle time, or were you looking for a win?
It wasn't an emotional test match. No, I just think we never really thought of batting out time. We basically said that let's go play a natural game. That's what was said in the dressing room. And we kept saying you never know. All right? But I think as time progressed during that test match, especially in that 14th innings, gradually with the partnerships with Brian, myself, because we lost Chris and I think Devon early, and then we had Darren who batted at number 3, then Brian for myself at 5 and Shiv at 6. So we lost 3 quick wickets, and then myself and Brian had a partnership. Then myself and Shiv, and then of course we know Vasbort and Omari. But because we were scoring so quickly, and the fact that they were attacking, there was a lot of space. So why not try and take the challenge on and try and score quickly? So we kind of put ourselves in a position, and we never really doubted ourselves, because we were always saying, you never know, and that was the mantra throughout.
Of course, there was a confrontation with Glenn McGrath, whom incidentally you said a couple of days back that he's the best bowler you ever faced. I want to ask you exactly what was said during that confrontation, but did that moment make the victory even sweeter? Because here you had a set of guys in Australia who were dominating cricket, and they were sledging you guys, and you did the unthinkable. Did that fire you up?
Yeah, it did. I think with stuff that he said, and it kept going on, and I'm not a person who would, and I didn't even react. I just said back something to him. and he got upset. But I think with his constant sledging and stuff like that, it was fine until he said something out to do, and then I responded to him. But I think, having said that though, I did not know the situation of his wife at that time, and of course I apologized to him, and I could understand why he behaved the way in the field. But sometimes in the heat of the battle as well, I think people get emotional.
Yeah.
But that whole situation that panned out to be where that particular situation kind of pumped me up. Because like I said before, when I get kind of worked up on stuff and my blood get hot, I become a different person. So that in itself kind of, but it was pleasing for us to chase on for it and for the first team to do it. And I think for myself to be a part of something like that, it was a great achievement. And of course, Shiv and the rest of the guys, and myself and Shiv had a significant partnership, which makes it even sweeter due to the fact that both of us were Guyanese.
Where does that century rank in your career highlights?
Best.
Best. You were touted as one of the best captains around at the time that you played at regional cricket. You got the captaincy of the West Indies cricket, and then there were issues that led to you being removed from the captaincy and all of that. What was the experience like for you as captain of the West Indies team?
It was great. I mean, for the period it lasted, it was really good. I can't say that I never got the support of the players. I think it was easy for me for the transition due to the fact that I played with a lot of the guys. But I think what happened prior to that with the vice captaincy probably was the worst decision in my life in terms of accepting it at 23.
Why?
But it is not. It had nothing to do with performances. I think it created a lot of jealousy and a lot of enemies, whether it was on the cricket team or whether it was in the GCB or whether it was in the West Indies board, wherever it was. And in hindsight, I think probably that's one of the worst decisions I've ever made. But I mean, it never really affected my batting and so forth, but it also showed me that who really was my teammates and who were my friends. For example, I never really called for the position or asked for the position. It was given to me, and I think it was Sir Viv that called me up. Like, and they would call me and said I've been selected, and I said, okay, thanks. And I had the same response when I received this phone call. We have decided that we will name you vice captain. Would you accept it? I was like, yes, thanks. And that was the conversation. Little did I know I was going to have enemies.
Yeah. You mentioned you got the support of the players, but did you receive the support of the board during that time?
Well, I would think so. I'm not too sure because I don't know. First of all, they appointed me, so I would assume that they would support me. But I think cricket, there's a lot of internal politics and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't even know what went on.
All right, in between all of this, you led Guyana to the first Stanford T20 tournament. There was a lot of things happening in this country during that time. Everybody came together and they were rallying behind the team. A couple years after you won the Caribbean T20, I think you went to the final of the CPL with the Guyana Amazon Warriors. I think you're probably the only captain to all three tournaments to have gone to the final. You also led Guyana to the Champions League tournament in South Africa. Those achievements must be of immense satisfaction to you.
Yeah, it is, but I'm not a person who tends to hold stuff and keep those things. I mean, if you didn't mention that to me, I would never know that 3 consecutive finals. For me, winning is ultimate. Whether I was captain or not, it was my ultimate goal to win. Like I said to you earlier, even if it seemed impossible, I still believe that there was a slight chance of doing it once I'm at the crease. And that is how I view it. But in terms of, I'm flattered basically with those stats. So to have the teams that I've played with, and especially the younger guys, I can recall when we were in Trinidad when we beat Barbados, young Fook became a star. And a lot of people would be probably surprised when I say this to them now. I now came back from somewhere, I think I was on tour somewhere, so we were at the stadium, they were at the stadium practicing. So I turned up for practice, and I saw him batting in the grass. So I was like, who's this Chinese fella? Not knowing I'd met him about 8 years ago at Albion. Michael Chinsami had introduced me because Michael used to take care of him, Michael Chinsami. But you can tell the way he was standing, the way he was stroking the ball, you could tell there's some sort of talent in this young man. Yeah. So my only concern is whether he could hit the ball or not. So the guys keep saying, SARS, he hits the ball a very, very long way. Anyways, I sent him out in the middle and I sent a couple of guys with him and when he's standing, I told him, just throw a couple of balls, let me see if he's going to hit it. From the very first strike, right, I said, we picking him. The very first strike, I said we pick him. And that is how Jonathan made the national team, the T20 team.
And then he rose to prominence in the final.
Yeah, that's right. And on top of that, what I did, because I think it was very important for them to recognize as well what they have done, I basically stood in the background and allowed him to be in the forefront to take photos with our team.
Yeah. When we return, we will delve into a career that has attracted its own share of controversy. Stay tuned.
This is your host Faisal Khan for the Spotlight.
Hi, I'm Alana Sebran.
And I'm Russell Lancaster, and we're judges on The Spotlight.
Keep watching E1 for more details.
Welcome back as we continue our discourse with Ramnaresh Sarwan, who recently retired from international and first-class cricket. Well, if you think the first segment was interesting, this one here will blow your mind. Ramnaresh, it wasn't all smooth sailing for you at all. In 2005, remember, you and 6 other players were dropped from the tours of Pakistan and South Africa over a contract conflict because you guys were sponsored, the individual sponsors, by Cable and Wireless, and Digicel was a team sponsor. You were later reconsidered for selection after terminating your agreement with Cable and Wireless. What was the WICB saying to you guys at that point when this conflict arose?
It was basically that we had to try and come to a solution. Obviously, prior to that, Cable and Wireless was also the team sponsor.
Right.
So when we took sponsorship, Cable and Wireless was still sponsoring us. But obviously, there had to be some sort of internal stuff going on that made Cable and Wireless approach us to sign us individually. I think they probably have gotten the news that Digicel was going to come on board. That is my feeling. I don't know how accurate I am, but we had to try and find some sort of solution to the problem. Eventually, Digicel took over our personal contracts, and I think that was probably the easiest way to try and solve the problem. So it wasn't as bad as it sounded. It was just a matter that we needed to get some clarity in terms of where we would go, and we were able to get that very quickly.
As captain in 2007, you made certain statements about the then coach, Bennett King. quote-unquote, one of the worst coaches
Easily.
that you would have worked under, and he was abusive to players. Those are strong words coming from a captain. What triggered those comments?
A lot of stuff. There were a lot of players who were unhappy. I wish not to call names. But I think when you don't have an appreciation for people culture and stuff like that, I think it's an embarrassment. It's a slap in people's face. I mean, we've had umpteens, well, not myself, but him and other players and stuff like that, a lot of disagreements and stuff like that. I think, in my opinion, especially if you're managing people, first and foremost, you got to appreciate people culture, and I think he never did. I think he saw this opportunity to probably use people as slaves. I mean, being in New Zealand and getting players to wake up at 6:30 and trying to take them to a lake that's cold and tell them players that would be as good as an ice bath is ridiculous. Especially people coming from this part of the world. And even with other players, Australians, those people players from New Zealand, when you speak to them, you share some of the experience. They think that it was crazy. And due to the fact that we have had team run and misunderstanding, and he also targeted quite a few players. He tried to get rid of a few players. Of course, I was one of those players. I can recall a situation when we were in New Zealand. Prior to the New Zealand tour, there was a big campaign for me not to go to New Zealand. Fortunately, due to my performance, I was able to be selected. So I went to New Zealand. We were scheduled to 5-1. There's the first three I played. I think I'd be top scored in all three of it, but we lost. We were already 3 down in the best of 5. So I strained my tie in the 3rd game. So I was concerned because my ultimate goal is to play Test cricket.
Right.
So the 4th game, which I was very concerned about, if I play, it would probably rule me out of the Test match.
Right.
I was basically forced to play the 4th game, and I was stressing if I don't play it, I will basically get sent. Yeah, I'll get sent home. So I wasn't really left with much of a choice. Either way, I was coming home because I knew if I continue running, it will get worse. He sold it to me that we haven't done well. I'm the only batsman in form, and blah blah blah. It so happened I ended up playing, and just as I thought, it got worse. Then I was sent home from the tour. Nevertheless, I came home, I did my rehab, whatever. I was selected again to go to Malaysia in 2006, and I confronted him. I can remember clearly that he was sitting on a rail, and I went across to him and I asked him, but I didn't ask him, I told him. I said, I'm aware that you were trying to drop me before we toured New Zealand, and he literally started to tremble. So when I mentioned that to him, I walked away, and then I returned back to him. I said, just be aware that I know the stuff that you're doing. Whether you're being encouraged internally or whether it's your choice, just be aware that I know.
That must have been really hurtful for you though, because it was your boyhood dream to play for the West Indies, and here is someone from Australia trying to deny that.
Of course it was. And that was not the only situation or incident that occurred. There are many, many other incidents that took place. And like I said, many other players, but I don't want to speak for players. So that was one of it. And I think we as West Indian people need to understand that not because we play or not because the team is not doing well, it means solely and only the players. I think, of course, the players has to take some responsibility, but I think majority of it lies on the West Indies Cricket Board and the people who they bring to manage our players. For example, we had John Dyson, which was the total opposite. Yeah. And you could have seen progress, but for some reason, they wanted someone else. You're getting progress with someone, but you don't like the team they're picking because they're not listening to you. So they needed to find someone who they could manipulate. I can recall John, every time John comes out to the selection meeting, SARS, Chris, this is headache. All I need to say to them, or all I want from them, is my best team. That is how he says, if I don't get my best team, I can't win. I need my best team. that has been his mantra throughout the year and a little bit that he's been there. And if you really take a look at him in terms of the team that he's been picking, it's been a total contrast from Bennett King to what John's been picking, because majority of the time he wants his best team to play. He wasn't caught up in the politics, and if it meant that he had to lose his job, so that he did.
You think he was more interested in being loyal to the board?
Who's this?
Bennett King.
Of course. And I think that statement today that you showed me earlier indicates that. But I think at the end of the day, as a coach, it's good to respect who contract you or who your boss. But I also think that you gotta be able to encourage your players and believe in your players. When he came here, of course, West Indies wasn't doing that well, and I think if he was such a good coach, he'd be probably coaching some team in Australia or somewhere else in the world.
I don't think he's had a contract since.
Exactly.
Subsequently, you were cut from the contract list in 2010, and I think if you look back at your career now, there's where it started to go downhill, as you no longer commanded a place basically in the team. Your fitness came into question. It was deemed unsatisfactory. Do you think that was a fair assessment at the time of the fitness?
It was never a fair assessment.
Was it fitness at all?
I can't say. It depends how people interpret it. I have a chronic problem, back problem.
Right, and that is well documented.
That's right, and it's not a situation. And that back problems, or my back problem, I should say. Sorry. There's a lot of other things that comes into play that it would affect.
Right.
My hamstring, my glutes, my hips. For example, what would you say about Michael Clark and Shane Watson?
Yeah, they had lengthy careers.
Exactly, and they've also had a lot of injuries, right? But mine was using an excuse. I'm not saying at all time I was physically fit in terms of, I don't think there were situations that my back brought when I was probably a bit overweight, where I found it difficult to train and stuff like that. Rehab would take anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks before I could even start running and stuff like that. So it got it, but I'm not going to sit here and say I'm perfect. Yeah. Of course, I will take some of the responsibility, but to put it on me that I was unfit, I think it's an unfair assessment. I think when it went to arbitration, that showed up. Mm-hmm. But I think it was used as an avenue to make way for Sammy to become captain.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because you had myself, Chris, Dwayne Bravo, that's 4 players. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, we've become the worst set of people on our team. So Dwayne wasn't all around, and you got the Pollard coming through. So I think Sammy had some challenges, right. Even to probably make the test, to make the test team and the one-day team. I don't know how that happened. But then, of course, I think in the T20, what came out of that part, mm-hmm. he probably could have earned his spot. But I think the obstacle and the way for him to become captain was Sarwan, Gale, Bravo. So those 3 people became the worst.
Mm-hmm. They were targeted.
That's right. So what they did is to kind of start pushing out one by one. Then you had the whole scenario with John not being able to go through his 3 years due to the fact that he wasn't doing what they basically was asking him to do. Mm-hmm. Then I think Otis came just after them, right. And then the wheels start to come off the cards.
The question of your fitness caught on. People were saying it could be true. Mm-hmm. Sarwan partying, right? He's getting chubby. Mm-hmm. Was it at any time you disregarded fitness?
Not at all. Uh-huh. I found it funny when people say that I party. Of course I party. Uh-huh.
I want you to address that one.
Yeah, I'm very outgoing without a doubt. And I have no regrets about going out. I have friends that socialize. I mean, I would not sit in my household because when I'm on tour, I basically train the hell out. Yeah. Every now and then you go. I would never go 2 days before a test match. I would never go 2 days before I won the international, right? So I had my routine. Mm-hmm. I would go out as soon as I come off the plane when I get to Ghana because I was excited to be back home and excited to be part with my friends. Mm-hmm. However people want to take that, I mean, I respect their opinion, and that is fine with me. But to blame it on my fitness, which is something which is well documented, like you said, is something else. Like I said before, I think it was an avenue to maneuver to find their way to something.
You later lodged an appeal against the WICB for the comments that they made, and you were awarded a significant sum in damages. Did it occur to you then that you stood the risk of not ever playing back for the West Indies?
Yeah.
Given the fact that now your employers have lost this case and you could become a victim of the system.
Yeah, I knew that. Even before, I mean, for me it was the principle. Because I had received a call and basically saying to me that you won't play for West Indies again. So that's, yeah, I did receive a call. It's well documented in the arbitration. So from that point, I knew that I wasn't going to play. From the time I received the call. So I knew I was walking on very, very thin ice. I knew that. So it was just a matter now of me trying to basically score runs and play for survival. And I never really played for survival. I played for the love and I enjoyed it. I always played with a smile on my face. Whether I scored a duck or I scored 100, whether I'm feeling, I enjoyed it. So when I started to receive those calls, and every time you go to a meeting or every time, you can tell, I mean, it was never easy. I mean, the India series, for example, when I batted, the coach referring to, well, not referring, telling one of my teammates that I just wish if he could face, I could drop him. These are guys who have been around for years, right? You don't expect them to come and tell me. Obviously, it's a message he's giving them to bring to me. So I played with those pressure on my shoulders. I think throughout, from when I started to probably when I got into 30, I was fine. It was pure joy. I enjoyed it. It was amazing. I mean, I can't complain.
Right.
But from the time the phone calls came in and the threats started coming, I started to lose interest. I lost confidence, and basically, I was broken mentally. And then I started to just basically start a phase out gradually, and that's what they wanted. That's what they wanted. Because in this, when England toured here, I felt that I was starting to get to my peak because I was starting to feel, I could tell the difference because just before that against Sri Lanka, and I could tell the difference. So I was feeling good, I could understand my game much better. So I was starting to peak now, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then we had a strike against Bangladesh just after that.
When Sami came.
That's right. And then there we go. The rest is history.
At 30, as you rightly mentioned, then is where cricketers tend to peak.
That's
because
right.
You've accumulated all this experience of conditions and different bowlers and this sort of stuff. The Australians, for example, they would load a Michael Hussey at the age of 32 with how many hundreds of first-class matches. Did you think the approach of our cricket, of our administration here, is good for the game when you're forcing players when they're supposed to be peaking?
I don't believe so. I strongly don't believe so too, because I think what they fail to understand, most of our players, including myself, and who I played under 19 with Chris, the Corey, the Wavell Hines, all of us made our debut before 21. Right? When you have 5 or 10 first-class games, because we never consistently play 10 first-class games over the season. Sometimes we have 5, sometimes we have 10. Whether it's 3 years apart, 2 years apart, whatever it is. We would tend to start to mature at the latter part of our careers because we were never given the opportunity to play a lot of cricket. Probably myself and Chris is an exception with Wavell, who was able to have quite a few 18 tours and stuff like that. So you would find players maturing at a later part, right? But I think it also, when you look at the way they pick teams and the way they treat players, to pick someone like Dwayne Smith, scored 100 in his debut in South Africa, and then a couple test matches after you drop him. Yeah, we know he had his technical flaws or whatever, but look at Dwayne Smith today than Dwayne Smith when he made his debut. They significantly improved in the guy technique. And that is due to the fact that he went to England and he played. Why we couldn't help him here in the Caribbean? And you know, so many players that has happened to. Xavier Marshall,
Adrian Barat.
Adrian Barrett. I mean, you could call a list of players that has happened to.
Or Ariel Narson being right here.
That's right. And the list would go on and on and on. And how long they don't decide to change that attitude and they focus more on being vindictive towards players, they would never see the problem within themselves.
Prior to that, that appeal for the fitness stuff, you had the coach Otis Gibson, as you mentioned earlier in this interview, that he got you out. He basically blamed the senior players, yourself, Shouldn't rank China upon Chris Gale for the team's performance at the 2011 World Cup. After that, there was a public outcry. The public did not feel that you guys should have been dropped. What transpired at that World Cup that led to that drastic decision when the team came back here?
They wanted to drop us. Flat out. Hands down. Their main objective was to get rid of us. Regardless of however they do it, it didn't really matter.
So you went to that World Cup with that in your head?
Yeah, I mean, I knew they wanted to drop me. I knew that from the inception. I knew that one. I was walking on very thin ice, and I was aware. Chris was aware. I'm not too sure if Shiv was aware, because I think Shiv had mentioned something to me in India. But we were aware, myself and Chris, we were aware of the situation, that these people are after us. So mentally, I was already gone. The way I batted in India during those, I was basically playing for survival. I wasn't enjoying it.
You were just there physically?
I was just there physically. My physical body, my head was probably here in Guyana. So it was far gone. But I was aware, Chris was aware. It was just a matter of trying to survive the system, which I've never really played to. I've always enjoyed my cricket and played a smile on my face. And from the time that was taken from me, I knew it was coming to an end.
What was the mood like in the dressing room, though, knowing that you guys have been targeted? And how was the atmosphere like in the dressing room, knowing that this could possibly be your last match?
I mean, it wasn't a nice feeling, but I can tell you one thing: I was prepared. And that is where I would refer to this building, because I've sat down since I was probably 25, since the incident with Bennett King. And I've said to myself that, listen, you got to make preparation by the time you get to the age of 30. Obviously, this did not materialize at 30. It took probably 2-3 years after. But I was starting to prepare myself, because I realized that if these people decide that they want to get rid of you, they will, especially if you give them an avenue where you're not scoring runs. Right. So basically, I already started to prepare myself. I mean, now I can sit and laugh about it, because obviously I think I've seen it and I've recognized it at a very young age. And I didn't really want to end up like others.
The statement you made about Bennett King in 2007, did you think that statement really triggered the way your career ended up after?
No, not a chance. If they wanted to drop me, they could have. And they had no choice, because I was performing. Yeah. But what triggered is the fact that they had to find an avenue for Sammy to become captain. Because Dwayne was under the same pressure, Chris was under the same pressure, myself was under the same pressure. And that was the only reason. Obviously, they had this striking where they're selling it that we were influencing the players and stuff like that. So it was never about fitness, in my opinion. It was all about who is going to become captain. And if they needed to put myself and Chris and Dwayne in space to create an avenue for somebody to become captain, they would have done it.
Did you guys get the support of people?
Yeah, we had the full support. And we tried, we fought it in every different ways we could have. But I mean, they're in charge, so they could have made the decision. So it wasn't a situation where we wasn't aware, or we were. I mean, it was everything was public and it was very evident. Yeah. It's not like if we were sitting down, saying, what, boy, who would be the next captain, or who would. We knew what was going on, and even the public knew that.
Yeah. You didn't hear much from the territorial board, the boards, the Jamaica Cricket Board in terms of Chris Gale, Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board, Dwayne Bravo, and the Guyana Cricket Board here. Did that surprise you?
No.
Why?
Because West Indies Cricket Board is made up of the territorial boards. But I think they basically had explained to the different boards, or the directors, that we will try and do so and so. So they had it well planned. Whether or not, if I'm disappointed that I received support from the GCB, I never expected to get support from the GCB. And that is well documented as well. So even to this day, I'm not even looking forward to their support. There's no need for me to get it.
Ship the right chat, Paul had some grouses about the way he was treated towards the tail end of his career. As you mentioned, as we all know, he had a little bit of failure and then he was pushed into the corner. You seem to have suffered the same fate as many did before you. Could you put a reason or reasons why the WIC will continue to treat players the way they're doing it?
Greed.
Lara came out to the system almost unnoticed. Service.
Greed. Power. I think anyone that poses a challenge to them and the fact that they feel they're large and in charge, that you must not say anything to them or touch them, they will get rid of people anytime they pose them. And if it's shown, there's a trend to it. And it's not going to change for now, unless something drastically changes. I don't see it changing for now, but once they've got their hands in, they will forever behave in this manner. I think it's unfortunate, especially for the players, because you can play with people's career, their childhood dream. Because most of our players in the Caribbean, well, probably for the last 3 or 4 years, probably couldn't survive on playing cricket. So I'm grateful that I was a part of an era where we were able to make changes. So I think it's going to be a major challenge going forward, unless cricket becomes a priority, which I don't think it is.
We saw recently the head coach Phil Simmons being replaced, and it's perceived to be that it was based on those comments he made about not having the right selection of the team. Is it fair to say that if you want to make a career as a cricketer in the West Indies, it's best to put a duct tape over your mouth and go about your business?
Well, that would have to be the player's choice. But believe you me, players will learn and they will understand. And the things that we had fought for however long ago, how many years ago, it all has changed now back to where it was before we were there.
Why this change?
I have no idea. I can't sit on... I don't think they were in control when Ramnaresh was there.
Good enough, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because there was always something that would come that he would challenge. Like, for example, when it was released, when they had a press conference saying that when I was injured, when I was in Florida, and I received a call, and said that when I got the threat, they made some story and put it in the papers that I said something but I wasn't available, something along that line. Or they called me and they informed me. Right? But I never received a call. Right? All I received was a phone call, a threat.
You think Weeper has lost its spite?
I think so. And it's funny. I'm very good friends with Wavell. Wavell strike with us, and then Wavell became Weeper president, and then everything that he fought for with us, he basically reinstated, agreed to. So, I mean, read between the lines.
Aside from the West Indies, you did play in the first CPL for the Guyana Amazon Warriors in 2013, and you took the team to the final, but you lost in the final. There were comments that probably there was some tinkering with the batting lineup and stuff, but we didn't get much into that. The following year, you were...
No, but it's fine to talk about it. I mean, I'd play. Like I did before, I took responsibility for that whole scenario in terms of changing the batting order and stuff like that. Obviously, as a cricketer and as a leader, sometimes you see things differently. Yeah. So, due to the fact that Morley was bowling, I think, and we never really had a momentum during the inning. So when Sunil went out, it was more or less to try and get momentum. When I was supposed to go and bat at 4, Lindell signaled to me and said, send Dinesh. And throughout the tournament, we have communicated very well with each other. So there's no reason for me not to trust the guys. And I've always been that sort of person, because I really believe that if you trust your players as a leader, well, more than likely that things could work out chain way, because I don't think you should have one captain in a team. I think everybody could be a captain, really. So they see things differently. So I trust what he saw there on the surface, and I sent Dinesh. And that was basically it. In hindsight, should I have left it as it is? Maybe. I should have probably left it. But in terms of me regretting everything and the way I've done it, I can't say I've done that fully, because I think a lot of things, like for example, the Jamaica game that we won when I gave Barnwell to bowl.
Yeah.
Hafiz suggested that. So I went ahead with Hafiz suggestion. If Chris didn't win that game for us, I would have been criticized as well. But sometimes you got to go with your instinct, and sometimes you got to go with what people say.
The team finished second best in the tournament, and you had a large following, this packed stadium and all of that. The following year, there is no Ramnaresh Sarwan. Did the franchise communicate to you the reason why you were not being selected for that year?
Yeah, they did come into a meeting, but to be specific, they didn't really give me this. Just said they wanted to move on, which is fine with me. I have no animosity with that and stuff like that. I wish them well, and obviously I suggested who they should probably name captain. And the same person that I suggested became captain.
In 2013, after that tournament, you were just 33. And you basically tailed off after then. You didn't hear much about Ramnaresh Sarwan, about issues that were being in the news and not cricket. Did you think that you were being robbed of a lot of years in your cricketing career?
I know I've had a lot of cricket left. I think I demonstrated when I went to England. But I also knew that it was going to be a challenge by itself to get back. Especially if Otis Gibson was there. I knew it was going to be a challenge to get back there. So when I went to England, it was more or less to try and regain my position. When I recognized that after scoring those runs, I wasn't going to get recovered test, because Test cricket was my ultimate goal. I kind of started to lose interest, and I decided, you know what, I'll just basically drop it. I came back home, and that's when I started to put a lot of effort in my investment.
The plans for the future, as you rightly mentioned, we're in this building now, which you have invested heavily in. Where do you see yourself in another 10, 15 years from now as an entrepreneur?
My main objective, to be honest, is to try and contribute to young people, or try and assist them in the best way I could. Obviously, I've been lucky and fortunate to play cricket, and it's given me everything I've got today. But I would like to expand on what I have presently. I'm very ambitious, and I try to do things. I try to go through things carefully. And obviously, being a businessman now, I'm sure I will explore a lot more stuff. My interest though lies in this country, and my heart and soul. So if I'm going to do anything, it will be right here. So hopefully, some other project will come up sometime soon. Because I believe that this country has given me a lot, and it's only fair for me to give back to this country. I've received unconditional love and support from the people of this country, and of course the people of the Caribbean also have supported me, but being a Guyanese and knowing when you're wearing a flag on your chest, it gives you goosebumps, especially when you're representing your country. And I think throughout my career, especially representing Guyana, I've played with my heart and soul. I'm not saying I haven't done that for the West Indies, but there's a special place in my heart when I play for my country.
There are a lot of other things that could happen now that you're out from the actual cricket field, cricket administration, commentary, coaching. Is that something on the agenda?
I will rule out commentary for sure. I might be too controversial.
which could be a good thing.
No, but in terms of coaching, there's a possibility. What was the other one, sorry?
And administration.
Administration, I probably have an interest in that, especially with the way Guyana cricket is going. So those two I will have an interest in for sure.
Coaching and administration.
Yeah, but my main objective is to make sure that I try and expand here in some.
Final two things. Tell us a bit about that red bandana. What inspired that? And do you have any regrets?
The red bandana, people said, give me all reasons why I wore it. The simple reason for wearing it, because my helmet was too big.
Yeah.
So it couldn't, every time I put it on, it would drop too low. So I had to try and figure a way out how I can get it to just stay above, probably halfway of my forehead, so I could actually see through the grave.
Yeah.
But it became something that kind
synonymous with
and not only that, I think what was very heartening is the fact that I started to receive those bandanas from everywhere.
Yeah.
One love, I love you, Sarwan, I wish I could marry you, and different things. It was the white and the red. I have them home still. So it kind of catch on with everybody, and I was really grateful that people sent it to me. But it was nothing about style or anything. It was just where I could be more comfortable when I'm batting. Because sometimes I found that perspiration was getting into my eyes as well. In terms of regrets, not at all. I've lived it, I've enjoyed it, and it was one hell of a ride. It was amazing, and like I said before, the fact that I was able to represent so many amazing people, it was wonderful. So I don't have no regrets. I appreciate the fact that you guys have covered me for over the years. You've always been supportive, and I'm grateful for that.
Number 53.
Forever live on.
Fitness 53. So it's indeed a pleasure to sit and chat with you, Ramnaresh, and to hear of all these stories, the good, the not so good, the ugly, the nice, whatever. I wish that the successes and the lessons that you would have learned during your career would help you in this new phase now as you try to move on from cricket and all that took place in cricket. And I think I speak on behalf of all cricket fans when I say that I thank you for all the entertainment and the joy that you would have brought, not just to Guyana, not the West Indies, but the entire world. Ramnaresh Sarwan, as Christopher Jones, the Director of Sport, mentioned, that name cannot be retired. And we are forever grateful for what you did, putting Guyana and West Indies on the cricket map. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, man. Thanks, sir.
My name is Avenash Ramzan. Thanks for watching.
Beautifully struck down the ground. The half volley played with all the grace and flourish that you can imagine. Here's a lovely touch player, Ramnaresh Sarwan, and he's put that away to the delight of his home crowd.
Well, this is cleanly struck and not a muscle moved.